isn't people once again becoming people as they were before the 1880s the new civil rights issue?
I'm not entirely sure I understand the question, but if you're asking the question about sort of corporate personhood, it's really an unremarkable concept. I mean, corporations are not trees, they're not ducks, they're not just buildings. They're associations of people. And they are, as you said in the intro, they're stockholders by and large. And that may be a group that we don't feel we need to do any favors for. But to think that corporations are not people, but they're made up of people. And I think that was Romney's point, and I think that's been the point of the Supreme Court on the question of money in politics.
Well, as Blackstone pointed out in the 18th century and was quoted by Justice John Marshall in 1817 in the what was it? It was the Woodhull case or the Dartmouth case?
Dartmouth
case. Corporations basically are creatures of the state. They are soulless creatures of the state, and they wouldn't exist without the creation of the state. And historically, as Blackstone pointed out, there have been two kinds of people, and we had to have some kind of personhood for corporations. Historically, they were either church or state, and then in 1601, in British law anyway, Queen Elizabeth brought about, by signing the charter for the East India Company, the first major corporation in England, corporations as well. They had to have some power of standing in court so that they could sue or be sued, so they could own property, and so they could pay taxes. But that doesn't mean that they should have rights under the Constitution.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up the Dartmouth College case because, of course, that famous quote by Marshall is actually saying, of course corporations have rights. He's saying it's absurd, to sit around and wonder about, are they people or not?
No, he wasn't saying they had rights. He said they had standing.
He was. That's what the decision is. The court decision holds that Dartmouth College, as a corporation, has rights that it can assert against the state, and the state cannot take the corporation's property on the grounds that, well, this was created by the state. He says this is a group of people, and people have rights, and so corporations have rights to the extent that the people have rights. So if you have a right,
well, yes and no. And Professor Smith, you're being disingenuous here. He was not asserting that corporations have rights as people understand them under the Constitution of the United States, things like the First Amendment right of free speech, the Fourth Amendment right of privacy, the Fifth Amendment right against taking or against self-incrimination, the 14th Amendment right against, which didn't exist at that time, the right of equal protection. What he was asserting was that they had standing, that they had some position. Certainly they had the right to have some of their property protected. They had the right of association. The individuals had the right of association. But it was in the 1880s, arguably Santa Clara County versus the state of California, that brought this to the fore when J.C. Chandler Bancroft Davis, John Chandler Bancroft Davis, the court reporter, wrote in the headnote to the case, even though the case did not decide that corporations had rights under the 14th Amendment, he wrote that they did in the headnote, and that has been quoted, frequently all the way up to Citizens United, that headnote.
Well, Tom, that's just bad history. I mean,
that is not bad history.
Clearly, what Marshall says is that the corporation of Dartmouth College has rights. And you said, they don't have rights. He didn't mean they have rights as we would understand them, like Fifth Amendment rights. Of course, that's what he meant. Are you saying that the government could just go and take the assets of any corporation it wanted and just take them with no just compensation?
No, I'm not denying that corporations have a right to due process. But are you asserting that a corporation has the right to marry?
Rights. No, they don't have a right to marry. What corporations have are all the rights that their citizens, that the shareholders would have in association with one another. So if you have a right to speak and I have a right to speak, the two of us can get together and we can form a corporation, and we have a right to speak. But we don't have a right as a pair of people to marry. We don't have a right as a pair of people to serve as governor.
So what you are asserting is the historic understanding of the difference between artificial persons and natural persons.
Sure, of course there's a difference. And corporations, again, can exercise all the rights that their shareholders have and can exercise in association with one another.
They cannot exercise all the rights that their shareholders have.
Well, sure, they can recognize all the rights that their shareholders can exercise in association with one another, such as speaking as a group, holding property together, or doing that
as a corporation. But we're taking this to this logical extreme of saying that an association of people has the right, as if it was a person, to free speech, for example, as was asserted by Nike in the Caskey versus Nike case. And as you'll recall, when Justice Rehnquist was confronted with the fact that in his dissent in Boston versus Bilotti, he argued that 1886 was inappropriately decided without benefit of public debate. And it was pointed out to him, no, actually, the decision did not say corporations have the same rights as natural persons. And that was added to the head note by Davis. He pulled cert on that case.
That's not the first case that has come up in. I mean, the history goes far back, well beyond the Santa Clara County case of corporations having the ability
so when Dow Chemical asserted that the EPA
those members, and I keep wanting to take this back to speech, because that's the big issue here today. Look, if you want to speak and I want to speak, and the two of us get together, we have a right to speak as two people. And if all your listeners want to join us, we have a right to speak as a big group of people.
But does a billion-dollar corporation that does 57 does a multi-billion-dollar corporation that does 57% of its business outside the United States and that may have as its interests many of its interests antithetical to those of the United States, does that corporation have the same right to speak as you or I in the public discourse with regard to politics?
Yes.
Well,
yes,
see, that's where you disagree profoundly with four of the 9 members of the United States Supreme Court.
Right. That is it. That corporation, the members of that corporation have a right to speak, just as
then
any
we're
other
screwed.
Group of citizens do.
Then you're advocating essentially kingdom, as Justice Stevens pointed out in his dissent in Citizens United.
Justice Stevens was dissenting. It's not because all the other justices are mean, evil monarchists, is it? No, it's because they have a different.
It's because they were wrong.
And I think a broader, fuller understanding of the First Amendment to recognize. I mean, let's say, for example, we've got a little town out in Iowa, right? And we've got a corporation there, and they're sitting there and they're saying, look, if we don't have these tariffs on these imports, which, by the way, personally I might oppose, but the company says we don't have these tariffs on these imports, we're going to go out of business, right? And that's going to be 300 jobs lost in this town. The people have a right to hear that, and they have a right to hear that from the.
I understand that the decision was based on people having the right to hear. Well, now we're parsing. In fact, we could go back to Bilotti, which was, does a corporation have the right to go beyond things that interest them? But anyhow, just for the record, you're asserting that corporations should have that right. I get it. Bradley Smith, campaignfreedom.org. Thank you for dropping by.
Thanks, Tom.
Bye.